of us have one of these sitting around somewhere in the kitchen. Mine is on a nice little cart that can be moved to where I like to do my baking. For that reason, I want to put a cover on top. Also, I do keep some of my things in here, and I would prefer not to have to wash this if it's been a while and things have gotten kind of dusty. And so I'm going to make a little cover for this. This part I've noticed sticks down below the bowl, and so this cover needs to be big enough that it can come up and get pushed down in the center and then still hook around the edge. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but what I've done is I've centered my bowl. There's a 10 marking here and 10 here and 15 here and 25 here. So it's a 10 by 10 space, and I've centered my bowl, and I've got my fabric folded into fourths and then again into eighths. So it's a pie-shaped piece, and it's going right to the center of all this. And what I'm going to do is cut. This is a fat quarter. I'm going to cut like this in an arc. And then I'm going to check to see if this is pretty good here. I think I need to cut this a little more. And you can see that now I've got a pretty round circle for my, and it's quite a bit larger. And I do need to make it larger than my bowl because that thing sticks down in the center. So the lid needs to go down in the center a little bit. So I'm planning for that. And this is a fat quarter that I'm using. And that way you could do anything you wanted. And then I'm going to put this back together the way that it was. And I would have done this before unfolding it, but I just wanted you to see what I'm doing exactly. And so I'm going to fold this back the way that it was. And then I'm going to use this same piece of fabric to do my casing for my elastic. And I don't want to lose too much size, and so what I'm going to do is cut this. I could mark this with chalk, but I'm just going to cut it, shooting for about 1 3/4 or so. I'm just going to cut this like this. And then I'm going to use, this will be my cover, and I'm going to use this piece to make my facing. Another thing I'm going to do that I think would be helpful is cut out a circle. I'm just going to use my Sharpie. And I'm drawing a circle. This is just a bag of rice left over from making rice trivets. And so I'm just going to cut this out. I just buy these big bags at Costco to make the trivets and stuff. I've cut my facing piece so that it's just a long curved strip, and on the inside of that curve I'm going to iron down 1/4 inch all the way around. And it's going to behave a little bit differently depending where you are, but you want to get it over at least a good 3/16. Turn your steam down if you need to, and blast it as you go. Ooh. My guide is on here, but I'm not using that. I'm just going to stitch very close to the edge. If I go off a little bit onto the fabric, that's okay with me. I'm just going to stitch this on with this big zigzag. It's almost a 3. It's 2.5. A little more than a 2.5. I'm just going to free motion quilt it. I often like to end that type of a thing with a circle. Hope that's going to behave when that, you know, because when it's on here, that rod that sticks down is going to push it down like this. So let's hope that we're going to like that, because it might be too stiff like that. We'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take right sides together with my elastic facing, and all I'm going to do is just fold it open and fold it flat like this on the end, and I'm going to stitch it down. And I'm not going to pin it because there's going to be varying stretch, but I am going to use my edge guide so that my seam that I'm doing is about 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to stitch this down. And when I get to the other end, I'm going to cut it to the right length and fold it over so that it's exactly the opposite of this. So I do backstitch. Okay, so I'm getting to the right area here. So I'm just going to see where this one is. I'm just going to cut this to that length, approximately. And then I'm going to fold this back to where they're just about even. It does, if you overlap a tiny bit, you can compensate, but if you overlapped a lot, it would be hard to deal with your elastic. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, I got these extra threads here. Okay. I'm going to go and press this like this. You probably want to keep your iron off the plastic if you can. And these should just open all the way out like that for now. And then we'll press them down, because this is just going to be a different kind of elastic casing. All right. We're going to open this up and just encourage that to go where we want. And then just kind of press it in place. Now you can see that this facing, because it's round, this facing isn't exactly perfect, but I think it's going to look really sweet when we sew it. And this is where I did touch my iron on there. It didn't seem to leave any on the iron, but it did melt that a little, so you want to be careful of that. So since I have an edger foot, I'm going to use it. You wouldn't need to use one. I'm going to kick my needle over that way. I am going to back stitch. I'm going to stitch this down all the way around, and when I come to this, I'm going to just be careful to have these made up. This is the underside of the piece, and so it really probably doesn't matter that much, but it's always nice if things are kind of neat. Then they seem like they're well made, because they are. This is what I have now, and this I think because of the way this is done, that this will go through the wash. To make this even cuter, I'm going to stitch around this outside edge again. It's not 1/4, it's a little less than 1/4. I've got my needle kicked over. I back stitched, and I always like to fold this type of thing up and get a nice thick piece so that it will really grip on there. And then I'm going to find my opening. My opening's, you know, a tiny bit off from my top stitching on the outside, but it should be okay. And now my elastic is actually a little bit thick for this casing. The other thing I could have done to keep this casing loose is not do that last top stitching, but I really thought it would add. And like I say, when you're designing a piece, you do all kinds of things that you go, okay, I'll make this slight adjustment and then it'll be really nice for your final design. This is a prototype. It's going to be really cute. And the top's going to have to push down a little bit. And I'm going to shorten them up because I think it's plenty long. I'm just going to cut off probably a total of about 3 inches there. Which I don't like to sew Velcro and I don't like to sew elastic, but and then pull this so that all comes back inside. Okay, so then you work that end in there and you try to distribute all of this evenly. And then you try it on. And then there is mine. So I think this is pretty cute. My elastic could be a little tighter and I could pull that out and tighten it up a little, but I think it's actually pretty good. So I'm going to leave it. If you wanted, you could find your opening and you could whip that up and stitch it together. Now it's all the way in there. Feels like a bonnet. Also, comma, I know I'm talking like I'm writing. Also, comma. Also, I do keep some of my blades and things in here, and